Today we're going to talk about aspect ratio, but not the Hollywood stuff. Wes Anderson has it all covered with cinematography. Instead, we're going to talk about 6x6, the allure of medium format, and how Instagram made it all cool again. It's funny how aspect ratios can play tricks on our minds, making something look more cinematic simply because of a crop. The more rare the aspect ratio, in a way, the more unique the image. It's kind of like how if you ever see a panoramic shot by a Hasselblad X-Pan, your first reaction would be something like, whoa, that's a really unique perspective. Because we know that panoramic goes naturally with landscape, but when someone uses the X-Pan to show us a portrait, it can be eye-opening. I think there's some sort of collective memory that globally we all share with photographs and hence aspect ratios. When we see something that looks from another era, our minds have an association with a time and a place and an emotion. Directors like Wes Anderson are known to play with this subconscious method.
Ian had been tending to his beloved pennyroyal mint plant for over 18 years and 4 months. He was a passionate amateur gardener up until the day that a local boar took a particular liking to his terrace. Just like that, his dreams were extinguished, like a candle in the wind.
So, speaking of Instagram, we've come to one of these spots in Hong Kong which unbelievably has become actually a tourist attraction. There are lots of Korean, Taiwanese, Japanese tourists just milling around in actually what is a public housing. The spectacle, the thing is actually that these public housings actually have rainbow colored paint. This is called Choi Hong Station. It's like a rainbow themed area, and there's 100 Instagrammers, amateur photographers, tourists just milling around, and like no locals. So we're here too. I have 2 films with us, both Fuji, since I just want to try something new, but they're pretty old films. One is 160NS, which is like a neutral portrait film, and one is 400H, which is kind of like portrait. They're both portrait films, unfortunately. Yeah, so they're not going to be very saturated, and this place is already very drab. So let's go check it out. Every time you see this picture on Instagram of this place, it's always like, it looks like it's like an empty, desolate place. And then, I'm not sure if they come in the morning or something, but here it's packed full of everyone trying to find their own little corner. And then it's always like the boyfriend photographer taking a picture of some like random girl. And this time, Anne's helping me out, so I'm a little special here. But a few years ago, Instagram reported that every day, 60 million square photos were being shot and uploaded on their platform. So whereas before people were always shooting in like rectangles, 4x5, 3x4 or something, now once Instagram came out, basically everyone was having to learn how to shoot and compose their images in squares. So then now that, you know, we go back to like a proper camera, I guess, outside your smartphone, I see a lot more interest in like 500cm Hasselblads or Mamiya 6s because people are taking that kind of like knowledge of 6x6 and bringing it back into actual 6x6 cameras, which is pretty cool. So it's just my opinion, but arguably the most ugly or unprofessional ratio would be 4x3. So 4x3 is used for Micro Four Thirds, but it's also kind of used in like old point and shoot cameras or, you know, like those digital cameras back in the early 2000s. And I guess like your mind just gets kind of trained to thinking about 4x3 shots, at least in my opinion, is like as like a snapshot. To be fair though, my only 4x3 camera was this Lumix Compact my parents gave me during university. I shot some less than stellar photos with it, but also some that were just perfect for the moment. It goes without saying that aspect ratio isn't everything. Memories and moments count the most, no matter what camera or ratio you shot with. That's just the nature of photography. So 6x6 was always the realm of the medium format geek. It was Warhol, it was Polaroid, it was avant-garde on one hand, but also very nostalgic on the other hand. That's probably why Instagram took it and made it theirs. It was something comfortable, but something also very unusual, something kind of jarring. So then the funny thing about Instagram and how it's affected photography is that it's kind of actually the complete opposite of medium format. So with medium format, the whole idea was to go bigger. You could print larger pictures, you can get more small details, subtle tone shifts matter, flicks of light, shown all beautifully across a big canvas. But with Instagram, everything is minimized on a small digital screen. So the compositions of squares still exists, but more minimalist, simple compositions work best on a digital screen instead of the more complex compositions that are allowed through a canvas on print. Not to be vain, but I'll use one of my own pictures as an example. So then this is one of my favorites. I shot this in the Gobi Desert in China, I think back in 2011. And then it's a pretty interesting picture to me that showed, I wanted to show the whole scale of the desert and one man's walk into the great unknown or something like that. Well, basically my friend was a little bit nihilist, contemplative, and he basically decided to walk for 5 minutes just into the desert with completely nothing there. And then I loved seeing this on a big print. It's very beautiful. You can see literally nothing else around. There's no Photoshop. It's actually just completely empty. On the screen, it's still, I would say the composition still works as a square. So you have one centered piece right in the middle of the entire frame, but it lacks a little bit of the scale. And this is already quite a large phone. It's one of those iPhone 6s or something. But if you imagine us on an even smaller one, then someone scrolling past at lightning speed would see nothing but just an empty, vast sand pit and maybe a speck of dust in the middle. Right now we're in Cyberport, in this really cool part of Hong Kong. It's like a park, waterfront park. It's one of the rare grassy nature areas. And then I like this place because 6x6 seems to work very well with a minimalist style. That's just because kind of the composition of the square and of symmetry. So right now when I look at these things, we're on the waterfront. There's a few things which stand out. If I'm looking at this, where would I compose? With a square, the rule of thirds still applies, but then a lot of times shooting something right in the middle works quite well. So then if I'm looking at this thing naturally, you have what immediately stands out is, for example, a light pole, and then there's objects around it, but then the focus of it would be right here. And then instead of all this empty side space, if we were shooting with 35mm, having a singular object within a square fits well. There's not so much wasted space. Around 3 years ago, Instagram allowed everyone to upload in whatever form they want to. August 2017. And before that, people were trying to get around that. 1 in 5 people were uploading their pictures with white spaces around so that it was uploaded as a square, but it was actually horizontal. So Instagram thought, well, people want to do it, let them have their horizontal. I can't exactly prove that Instagram is leading a resurgence in square format film cameras, but even a quick scroll through my newsfeed shows that plenty of people are still actively posting in the square format. Digital didn't necessarily have anything to do with that. On Flickr, for example, before Instagram, people were just posting whatever format their cameras shot in. But back on mobile, Instagram seems to have shown the general public that yes, it's still hip to be square. If you're fans of the show, please subscribe and also follow us on Instagram for photos from this episode. And I would also like to thank our Patreon supporters. You guys help the show continue. If you'd like to also help us on Patreon, the link is below.